finishing the Miami half that year helps me to show myself that my body was still mine.
Hola, welcome to Sana Sana podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Lopez Tomei. I'm a first-generation Cuban-American woman, breast cancer survivor, and mother of 5. I'm also a certified professional coach. Sana Sana is dedicated to you, Hispanic and Latina breast cancer survivors who've always been the strong ones and now feel lost in their identity after cancer diagnosis. Every week, I'll be sharing the foundation of my ecosystem of healing coaching process, which I use to help my clients restore trust in their bodies, release perfectionism, advocate for themselves, and live from a place of healing and peace rather than survival. Tune in to hear my real-life experiences, carving a new path for myself after remission, but helping my coaching clients carve a new path for themselves too.
Hola, Sana Sana sisters. Welcome to episode 6. All the episodes leading up to today have been really personal, but this one is especially so, because today we're going to talk about my double mastectomy. And I'm going to share some of the things that helped me after my diagnosis, through treatment, and leading up to and even after my mastectomy that I hope will help you too. So let me set the scene for you. It is Sunday, January 29th, 2017 in Miami, Florida. It's unusually cold that morning, and at around 6:30 a.m., it started to drizzle. And that drizzle turned into steady rain, which eventually became a downpour. Why was I in Miami in the rain and in the cold? Well, the previous year, I had signed up for the Miami Half Marathon that was taking place that day. I started to train in July of 2016. And then, as you all know, in August of that same year, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I suspended training for the half, although I would continue doing light cardio and strength training throughout treatment. So I was at that starting line when they released the runners in the cold rain, balled under my running beanie, no eyebrows. I had just finished 4 months of brutal chemo 3 weeks before the race day. And I was scheduled for my bilateral mastectomy. It's hard to say even now, almost 10 years later. I was scheduled for my bilateral mastectomy the following Wednesday, February 1st. And it sounds so clinical and perfectly medical when I say it that way, bilateral mastectomy. Like, oh, I'm just going in to have a procedure. The reality is I was about to lose the breasts that had nursed 4 of my 5 kids. And by the time I crossed the finish line that day, I did cross the finish line, spoiler alert, I was crying. I mean, I was tired, and I was also so grateful and ecstatic that I had crossed the finish line, that I had finished. And the whole times, from the time I started throughout the entire run all the way to the end, I was thinking, yes, I can do this. I can have this surgery that I am terrified of having, and I can finish this half marathon, and I can finish the cancer race. I remember thinking cancer can't take everything from me. It can't take my community. It can't take my will to live. It can't take the joy of living one day at a time in gratitude and in peace. And that was such a long time ago, 9 years ago. And I still remember the anguish and the thrill and the strength of will that I felt at the starting line. It all felt so consequential to me and for me, because it was. And now, with the benefit of time and distance from that day, I can also appreciate how scared and sad I was. What does this have to do with you, dear sister survivor? Maybe you've just been diagnosed, or you're in the middle of treatment, or God willing, treatment is behind you and you're trying to figure out how to function. You're wondering, what do I actually do? Not medically, because hopefully you've gotten good medical care, but internally, mentally, emotionally. In this episode, I'm going to share 5 things that helped me navigate treatment and protect my mental health. It's not a prescription or protocol. It's just my witness about what worked for me. And I offer it to you in case any of it might work for you too. Your 5 things may be completely different. And that's okay. And, if you're newly diagnosed in the middle of treatment or you see cancer in the rearview mirror and you want someone to help you figure out your 5 things that could help you as you start or as you're in the middle of this or as you're walking away from it. That's the work that I do. Book a free discovery call with me at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. The link, as always, is in the show notes. So if you've been listening, you already know this, but let me give a little context in case someone is joining us for the first time today. So here's my life before diagnosis. I was working at a high-pressure full-time job. I had 5 kids, ranging in ages from 3 to 25. I was in a 15-year marriage, going through a hard season. It's normal but hard season that marriages often go through. I was overstressed. I was not feeding my body or my soul well, and sometimes not at all, to be honest. I can count too many times that I skipped lunch or I didn't have breakfast or because I had a phone call or a meeting, or I got home and I fed everyone else, but I didn't eat because I had to work. So I was taking care of everything and nothing at the same time, it felt like, with a spectacularly long to-do list that had my own health dead last. I wasn't prioritizing my mental or my physical health in any meaningful way. Although I have to say that I had worked with a professional career and life coach since my promotion in 2013, and thankfully we were still in touch in 2016 when I was diagnosed. So on August 22nd, 2016, my OBGYN, who I and his patients lovingly called Che, because he was originally from Argentina. So Che called to confirm what I already knew in my heart of hearts. And I don't have to tell my sister survivors who are listening, and I assume it's obvious to everyone, but it bears saying out loud, that a breast cancer diagnosis can severely impair your mental health, which in turn affects your physical health. And yeah, that day that I got that call, it was a tough day. It was the first of many tough days. And you probably already know, and if you don't, then let me be the first to tell you that women already experiencing anxiety and depression may find coping with a serious medical diagnosis like cancer even harder. And that was me. I was walking into this diagnosis already depleted. My resources were definitely low, as they say. Oh, and although I was seeing a therapist before diagnosis, I decided to discontinue therapy during cancer treatment because I thought, why add another appointment to the mix? And I know, saying it out loud and looking back from almost 10 years in the future, it sounds nuts to me too. But more on that a little later. So let's just dive right in and name the 5 things that helped me after diagnosis that I hope will help you too. So thing number 1, feel the feels, all of them. I felt a lot of pressure, some of it self-imposed and some of it from outside, to stay positive after my diagnosis. Especially, I noticed when people didn't know what else to say. It was all well-intentioned, and I know that it was coming from a good place. It was things like, stay positive. You can beat this. You have to fight. I mostly nodded and smiled and then raged in private. I had a 3-year-old son at home. I remember shaking my fist at the heavens and screaming at God, like, really? WTF, God? Why me? Why now? What if I don't got this? What if I don't make it? What's going to happen to my baby? And trust me, God can take my anger and your anger. He's a big God, and he wants you to bring it all to him, the good and the bad. And I did. I did. And at some point, I stopped being polite when people told me not to be negative. That was their discomfort that they were trying to manage, not mine. And not too long after my diagnosis, I gave myself permission to feel all of it: fear, anger, devastation, grief. This doesn't mean that I didn't allow for optimism and positive thoughts too. I'm generally an upbeat person, but I didn't try to suppress the scary thoughts and feelings for the first time, really. And it was so liberating to give myself that permission. Finally, I wasn't trying to stay neutral or to project a certain image. And it had cost me so much already to hold back as much as I had for so long. So it was very freeing. And like my shoulders went from up here to down here when I just gave myself permission to feel everything. And why does this matter? Why does feeling everything, feeling all the feels matter? It's more than a trite little hack. Look, I'm not trying to, thing one is not like a hack. How to deal with your feelings in 2 steps or 5 minutes, or expressing and feeling emotions rather than avoiding them is one of the most evidence supported things that anyone really, and especially a survivor, can do for their mental health. It's not a weakness to let those feelings come to the surface. And I'm going to step off my survivor soapbox for a moment, sorry, and just speak directly to you. Ask yourself, what are you not letting yourself feel right now? Say to yourself, what am I not letting myself feel right now? What have I been told to keep positive that I actually need to grieve? Think about that for a minute. And if you have a pen and paper handy, I encourage you to write it down. I'll repeat it and maybe journal about it later. What am I not letting myself feel right now? What have I been told to keep positive about that I actually need to grieve, that I actually need to feel sad or mad or afraid or confused or unsure about? For me, once I let those feelings out, I was ready to face the facts. So thing one, feel the feelings and write them down. If you've got a journal and you're keeping track in your journal, write them down. Thing number two is get your treatment plan and then hand it over. I was very lucky to find my oncologist and get in to see her about a month after my diagnosis. And her name is Dr. Grace Wang. She's at Baptist Miami Cancer Institute. And I'm sure everybody says this about their oncologist, but I really mean it. And I think there is objective evidence to support it. Best doctor ever, best oncologist ever, best human ever. Thank you, Dr. Wang, for everything that you did for me and that you do for all of your patients. And I, of course, had a lot of questions and wanted to know everything. What kind of breast cancer did I have? Has it spread? What's the recommended treatment? Were there any more tests that I needed to undergo before starting treatment? What about genetic testing? How soon can I start treatment? And, as I was preparing for the very first doctor's appointment and all the doctor's appointments after that, I could just hear my dad's voice in the back of my head. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And I kind of want to take that back up to thing one about when you feel pressure to be positive. That was the way, like my dad was a person he was a very positive person, even though he had a lot of anxiety and a lot of worries and fears. He tried to keep a positive mindset. And that was like one of his mottos was hope for the best. So let's be optimistic. Let's hope that everything turns out, but hope is not a plan. So let's prepare. Let's prepare for the worst. And so knowing my prognosis and timeline gave me something to hold on to to focus on other than I have cancer in my body. And I am very action oriented after all. So having that plan, knowing what the plan was going to be, let me, like, it settled me. And then it let me hand over the worry to my medical team. Like, okay, we have a plan. We agree on the plan. I'm going to stop worrying about that because now it's in your hands. That doesn't mean that I didn't ask questions along the way and that I didn't advocate for myself or that my husband, didn't advocate for me or others. But at that moment in time, it just allowed me to kind of release the worry about the medical treatment plans. And then I think I've told you, if you've been listening along in the first 5 episodes, I've told you at least once, maybe more than once, that one of the first people I talked to after diagnosis was my coach. And she asked me a question, which was, how do you, Eileen, want to experience cancer? And that question really changed everything for me. Because, well, first of all, I was like, how about I don't want to experience cancer? And then it was like, okay, well, I'm here and I'm going to experience cancer. I'm experiencing cancer. How do you, Eileen, want to experience cancer? And there's a lot there that we can unpack in a whole separate episode. But I will tell you, and I think again that I have said this, I didn't want to be at war with my body. And so fighting the cancer meant that I was fighting my body, and just that imagery didn't work for me. And if it works for you, that's great. One of the most important things when you're going through cancer is to try to figure out, like, what is the thing that's going to help you to stay semi-sane as you're going through this really difficult, time. The whole like war or fight or whatever metaphor did not work for me. And I also didn't just want to survive it. I wanted to experience it, and I wanted to decide how I was going to experience it. And that seed that my coach planted, that question, that is the seed of the ecosystem of healing. And started on that day that she asked me that question. And, if you've just been diagnosed, is there a question that you're afraid to ask your medical team or yourself? And what is that question? What do you actually want to know that you haven't let yourself ask? For me, it was about survivability. So once I had a better picture of the terms of my illness, the staging, the type of cancer I had, breast cancer, prognosis was one of the questions that came up, and this term survivability. So what are the chances that I survive this and I'm still here 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And I did eventually ask my oncologist that question. And I am sure she gave me a really great, measured, specific answer. As a matter of fact, I know she did, because I recall asking the question. I don't recall the exact answer, but I recall feeling like, okay, much better than I felt when, before asking her, I asked Dr. Google, which, do not ask Dr. Google anything. And the answer that Google gave me was not good. But I'm getting off a little off track here. So sorry, let me get back on track. I want to come back to coaching, because here's what coaching adds to this scenario. And what coaching adds is not in place of your medical team and what your medical team provides, but it adds something. It works in parallel with your medical team. So my amazing Dr. Wang and her team gave me a treatment plan for my body. And a coach helps you build a plan for the inside. I'm working with a client now who told me, no one asked me how I wanted to experience this. Everyone assumes that you're going to put your boxing gloves on, you're going to tie a pink ribbon on and fight, fight, fight. And that question alone of, well, how do you want to experience this, is where I start my work with my clients. So having the treatment plan grounded me, as I said, and then I needed people around me to help me carry it and to see it through, to take notes, to sit with me at appointments so I could cry or pray or joke or just be me or not pay attention if I was particularly exhausted mentally and physically that day. So thing 2 is have a plan, get your medical treatment plan, and then hand it over to your medical team, to your partner, to your caretaker. Hand it over. Which brings me to thing number 3, community. Choose your circle wisely. So after my diagnosis, I and my husband and my immediate family members, my adult kids, and I had adult kids at the time, helped me to circle the wagons around me, around us, and around the community that I wanted to spend cancer treatment and survivorship with. So that's my thing 3. Circle your wagons around the family, the neighbors, the community, the worker, the colleagues, work friends, work family that you want to spend cancer treatment and survivor with. My first call after diagnosis was to a good friend, also a breast cancer survivor herself. And she held a space for me where I could cry, curse, laugh, break down, off and all in the same conversation. She is my sister survivor, and she's like a second mother to my 4th born. And she got it. She understood. She had been through it not too long before me, a year or 2 before me. So really not long at all. And it's so important to curate the energy around you during this time. So she was one of the people that was inside my circle, my cancer circle. And you can roll your eyes if you want to, but I stand by thing 3, which includes not just circling your wagons around your community and choosing very carefully the community that you want to spend your cancer, cancer treatment and diagnosis treatment and survivorship with, but protecting your peace by choosing those people carefully. So another example, or an example of why I say this is a few weeks before my bilateral mastectomy, I ran into another survivor, different survivor. And I will never forget that she proceeded to tell me how awful her surgery and recovery had been, how helpless she'd felt for weeks after surgery, how she couldn't lift her arms to feed herself, to dress herself, to shower. She couldn't shower herself. She couldn't clean herself. I mean, so you can imagine, for me, that was like cue panic, right? I was working through my reluctance and my reticence to ask for help. And here is this woman telling me, not only are you going to have to ask for help and you're going to have to take all the help you can get, you're going to lose your independence altogether. And while that was her reality, and no, she meant well, I don't want to diminish her or her reality in any way. I didn't want or need to hear that moment. So I learned to be choosy about the energy I let in during the months of treatment that I underwent. And this isn't about being unkind or about excluding people. It's just about choosing the energy that you allow into your space during this time when you're already physically and mentally tired. Your ecosystem matters, and who is in your ecosystem will help to achieve and maintain a healthy balance during this time for you and for your caretaker and for your family. Because after that conversation with that survivor who told me how awful her surgery and post-surgery was, my husband had to help to manage the emotional fallout of that. My friends had to help manage the emotional fallout and tell me, oh, don't pay attention to her. So yeah, it's not just helpful to you in protecting your peace, but it's helpful in protecting the peace of those around you that are supporting you during this time. If you're listening to this podcast, you already know that cancer changes everything, not just your body, but who you are, how you show up, and what you're supposed to do next. I'm Eileen Lopez Tomei, cancer survivorship coach and 10-year survivor. I work with Hispanic and Latina breast cancer survivors who are ready to stop white-knuckling through survivorship and start living from a place of peace. If that's you, let's talk. I have 3 one-on-one coaching spots open starting in the month of May. Book a free discovery call with me at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. The link is in the show notes. So I also created my survivor community and joined the Day of Caring for Breast Cancer Awareness. Being part of this, first as a model, I think they called us Models of Hope, and then as a volunteer, gave me purpose and joy during a time when I wanted to mostly curl into the fetal position. The models and volunteers were survivors of all ages, shapes, sizes, colors, ethnicities, and stages of cancer. And when I modeled in the fundraising fashion show that they had every year, I was about halfway through radiation. So it must have been like April or May of 2017. Maybe I was a little further along, but my hair had started to grow back and I had radiation burn that spilled over and stretched across the edge of the silk tank top that I wore on the runway. And that was okay. That was okay. I had so much fun with it. My sisters-in-law, my sisters, my mom, my sister survivor friends, and a bunch of others came to support me and cheer me on that day. And so before we move on to the next thing, let me ask you, hermana of mine, who is in your circle right now that is helping you, even if it's just with open, supportive energy? And who might you or your partner or your caretaker need to gently move to the outer ring of your ecosystem for now? And you don't have to answer that right this minute or out loud. Just notice. And again, I encourage you to take this question to your journal. Whose energy is supporting? Who's in my circle that has supportive energy, peaceful energy? And who is in my circle that maybe I need to move to the outer ring of my ecosystem for now? And before we move on to thing 4, I want to try to weave an honest recommendation about community in here. Community includes professional support. So a therapist, a counselor, a coach. And as I mentioned earlier, I had just gone back to therapy a few weeks before my diagnosis, and I decided to pause during treatment. And, my thinking was, it's just going to be another appointment that I'm going to have to go to. And this was pre-pandemic. So I was not doing virtual therapy appointments. I was going face to face. I think also that played a role of trying to limit my exposure to other people because my immune system was going to be compromised. But at the time, I was very focused on getting cured and healing physically. And I just figured I'll pick therapy back up after treatment ended, which I did. But I'll be honest, I wish I hadn't paused. I mean, hindsight is 2020, of course. But I'm sharing that with you in case it benefits you. There's research that shows that psychological support during treatment reduces distress and improves quality of life. And there's emerging evidence that's still being studied that may also be linked to better treatment outcomes, including longer disease-free survival. And that's not a small thing. And it's why I wish I had asked for support sooner. If there's one thing that I would tell my August 2016 self, it's this: get the professional support that you need earlier, sooner. So your medical team is your outer ecosystem, and your inner ecosystem, whether it's mental health and emotional support, and envisioning a future for yourself, your inner ecosystem. All of that is part of your inner ecosystem, and that needs its own team too. So community held me. Number 3 was community. And then I needed to remember what my body could still do, which brings us to thing number 4, move your body on your own terms. So I want to start this recommendation with a memory. My dad battled lung cancer in 2010. He was diagnosed in January, around there, of 2010. And throughout treatment, he took daily walks. He walked as much as he could until he got tired. He lifted light weights, and both helped him feel less fatigued overall, despite the harsh effects of the chemo treatment that he received. And I remember telling myself then, I've always wanted to be a personal trainer. Again, story for another episode, but I've always wanted to be a personal trainer. There. And I remember telling myself when my dad was going through his own cancer battle, someday I'm going to help other cancer patients know this, that moving your body during treatment can help you feel less tired. And I honestly don't remember if this was something that was recommended to him by his medical team. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say yes or no, but I don't think so. I think it was just something he was already an active person, and it was something that he continued to try to do, both for his physical and his mental health. Because again, it helped him to like be outside and get some sunshine. And yeah. So my dad passed away less than a year after his devastating stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis. And so I didn't think about how he had sought physical movement during his own treatment until I didn't think about it again until August of 2016. And shortly after my diagnosis, I reached out to Stephanie. I'm going to send this episode to Stephanie so she can hear it and so she can hear her name in here because she's one of my cancer heroes. And she was one of the moms at the time from my youngest class. So her daughter and my youngest son were in pre-K 3 together that year. And they were in school together for a number of years after that. But that year they were in pre-K 3. And it just so happens that Stephanie is an exercise physiologist. I don't think I knew that at the time that I reached out to her, but I did know that she was training some of the moms in the school. She was doing like a boot camp and she was doing one-on-one personal training sessions. And she lived walking distance from my house. And so I reached out to her and I said, will you train me? Here's what I'm going through. Here's what just happened. I just got diagnosed with breast cancer. And I feel like moving my body the best way that I can is important. I like strength training and cardio, not so much, but I know cardio is important. So I wanted to do some strength training, whether it was with my own body weight or with light weights. And I also wanted to do some cardio. So she accepted me as a client. She read up, and I discovered that she was an exercise physiologist, and she read up on exercising during cancer, including the benefits. There were some studies, 10 years ago, already out there about the potential benefits of moving your body during cancer. And so she personalized my sessions. And I want to say she took it very personally in the best of ways. Like she understood the assignment, as the kids say. She knew that I wanted to feel strong in the middle of these debilitating side effects that I was experiencing, especially during chemo. And she was an expert, so she knew how to balance, what I really wanted and what I needed at the time. Forever grateful. Some days we could do more than others, and I will admit that I probably pushed myself a little too hard sometimes, still do that. I was still learning how to honor and listen to my body back then. Much better about that now, thanks to Stephanie and thanks to my son, who's a personal trainer and who trained me for almost 3 years, the past 3 years. But I couldn't have made it through treatment without her support and encouragement. And since then, I've learned a few things about exercise during cancer treatment. So there's a 2026 study from right here in Miami, from the Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center at the University of Miami, that looked at over 3,000 women who were undergoing active chemotherapy and found that structured exercise improved quality of life across physical, emotional, and mental health. They couldn't tell us exactly what kind of exercise or how much was beneficial, just that moving your body in whatever way works for you made a meaningful difference. So women who were already moving their bodies when chemo started reported better cognitive function, which is one more reason not to wait to get active, no matter where you are in your journey. And if you were already active and you were diagnosed, to continue that to the extent that you feel that you can, and guess I should pause here and do like a PSA. Everything that I did with the clearance of my doctor. So when I told her I had hired a personal trainer, told her, is that okay? I asked her if that was okay. I shared the information with her and she gave me the thumbs up. So please, everything that I'm saying, you should check with your medical professional, obviously, your medical team before undertaking. And this is not about pushing through exhaustion. It's about finding your version of a Stephanie. It's a video, and if you can afford to hire a personal trainer, some cancer centers and survivorship programs have exercise physiologists on staff. My cancer center didn't at the time that I started treatment, but by the time I think I was in radiation and concluded treatment, they did have exercise physiologists, which I also worked with later on. So this is about finding your Stephanie and your version of moving in whatever way that you want and whatever way your body can and in whatever way your doctor approves you to during treatment. Before we move on to thing number 5, I have one more story to tell you about how moving my body in a way that was meaningful to me helped me face surgery and helped me to recover from surgery, honestly. So I've been a runner on and off my whole life, including through a good chunk of my second pregnancy, which was also while I was in law school. And in the summer of 2009, I was in a work trip overseas. It was an extended work trip. And there were a pretty decent number of people who got up every morning to go on a group run. And I decided to join in on the fun. I thought it would be a great way to meet people. I hadn't been running in a while. Like I'd taken a long break from running and just thought it would be great to pick it back up. And I made a friend who worked for my same agency in the government, and she ran in the back with me so that I wouldn't be left behind. And she also became my coaching mentor that summer and signed up to run my first big race or my first big run, the Miami Half Marathon, with me in January 2010. So she lives in DC, lived and lives in the DC area. And so I got a training program, but she mentored me, encouraged me that summer and all of fall and winter. She trained in DC. I trained here in South Florida. And then in January of 2010, she came to Miami and we ran my first half and her 50 million because she's an accomplished runner together. And so fast forward to 2016, I've registered for the 2017 Miami Half, of course, not knowing that the cancer diagnosis that I was going to get that summer. And like I already said at the beginning, I started training for the half, like the summer, right before my diagnosis. I went to there's a running group here where I live. I went to a couple of their, group runs, got diagnosed, and then stopped going. I exercised with Stephanie, but, didn't continue my half marathon training. And so the Miami Half Marathon of 2017 was scheduled 3 weeks after my chemo ended and 3 days before my surgery, my bilateral mastectomy surgery. And I don't remember where along the way, I think it was like after I was done with chemo, I decided that I wanted to try and finish it. I was already registered, right? And I had, since 2010, maybe not every year, but almost every year, I had run the Miami Half. So I wasn't trying for a PR, obviously, for a personal best. I wasn't even going to try to run most of it. My goal was to not get picked up by the slowpoke mobile and to just finish. And my friend Chrissy, really good friend of mine, who's an avid and accomplished runner, our daughters went to school together and she used to live here in South Florida. She found out that I was doing this, that I had decided to do the run, and she registered for it. She either registered for it or she was already also registered for it, but she decided to come down from DC to do it with me. And there were a group of coworkers who are like my family who were registered. I think we had all registered the year before, but they were also registered for the Miami Half separately, separate from, me wanting to finish it after finishing chemo. And every one of them spent some portion of that run with me. So there was always someone with me. There was no moment in time where I was alone. And again, like back to the intro, I had no hair. I was bald, completely bald under my running beanie, no eyebrows. I mostly walked. I wasn't trying to set a record or prove my ninja fitness. I want to be very, very clear. I'm not recommending a half marathon to any survivor out there. For me, completing this run was about reclaiming agency. I had no control, certainly no control over the diagnosis, no control over what came after the diagnosis, over chemo, surgery that was coming, radiation. Yes, I consented to the treatment, but after that, I turned myself over to my doctor and the medical team and to the cancer center. So finishing the Miami half that year helps me to show myself that my body was still mine, that my mind and my body were still strong and would and could heal even after chemo, even after losing my breasts, and even after radiation. So it's so important. I want to just pause here and say it's so important to find your version of this, something that reminds you that your body is still yours. Actually, let's stop here and take a deep breath for a second. I need to take a deep breath, and I invite you to join me. What is the thing, however small, that reminds you that your body still belongs to you? Is it a walk around the block, stretching in the morning, dancing in your kitchen, swimming in the pool? What is that thing? So when I finished the Miami half in 2017, I remember crying. I remember sobbing, mostly out of relief. And I was kind of laughed crying at one point because I thought, only you, Eileen. Esto solo se te ocurre a ti. This would only occur to you. I was soaking wet, I was cold, and I was so relieved. I felt so much calmer about surgery and whatever was coming after surgery when I finished the half. And you know what else it helped me do? On the day of surgery, just 3 days after the run, when I was wheeled into my room after spending some time in post-op recovery, I asked my husband and whoever else was there, which I don't remember who else. I know my cousin visited me in post-op recovery, but I don't remember who else was there that day. But I asked my husband and whoever else was there to wait outside of the room. And I just had the two nurses, that one that was wheeling like my gurney and another one that I think was there to receive me to my room. I just asked the two nurses and me to go into the room with me. And I knew what they were supposed to do. You know, they were lining up the two beds side by side, and they were going to lift me up on the sheet and slide me over to the hospital bed. But I said to them, please, I want to try and do this by myself. I don't want you to lift me up and pick me up and put me on the bed. I want to put myself on the bed. And it was hard. Just remember this like tremendous pressure on my chest. I wasn't feeling any pain because I was still under the effects of anesthesia, and they probably had put something in my IV for pain management at that point. But it was really hard to get out of bed. But I did it, and I got into bed on my own. And my nurses stood by, ready to help. And I was ready to ask for help if I needed it. I had to promise them that. And it's a lesson that I had recently, learned, was still fresh in my mind, the need to ask for help. So I was ready to ask for help, but I also needed to know that my body was still mine and that I could get into my bed on my own. And the nurses were so awesome. I wish I could remember their names, or that had even written them down or told somebody what their names were, because I'd like to go back and find them and thank them, because they let me do it. They didn't, overreact. They didn't wring their hands about it. They just were like, are you sure you want to do this? Yes. Okay. We're here. We're here. We're going to stand right here in case you need us. They were just quietly cheering me on and also not making a big deal out of it. They were just witnessing what I was doing. And it was such an important moment for me. I knew everything was going to be okay in that moment as well. So yeah, so it was finishing the half and getting into the hospital bed on my own after surgery were two really big moments for me. And that brings us to thing number 5 that helped me after my diagnosis and that I hope helps you as well. And that is ask for and accept help. So ask for help, and if help is offered, accept it. I've already shared just a few minutes ago how this was the hardest thing for me, and I've shared on other podcast episodes. It wasn't chemo, it wasn't finishing a half marathon 3 weeks after chemo. The hardest thing for me after diagnosis was asking for help and accepting it. And I don't know why, because my people rallied. My sister threw me a prayer party. We are 3 sisters, and the middle sister, my next youngest sister, opened her home to dozens of women from our kids' school, my nephews and my nieces, and my kids all went to the same school. She opened her home to people from church, from my work, from the neighborhood. We sipped Prosecco, we prayed the rosary, and we raised money for the Miami Cancer Institute. My brothers-in-law covered the after-school pickups and high school carpool when needed. My kids' school and my church community and friends brought meals. They gathered to pray for me. They sent me inspirational texts and cards. My sisters-in-law helped with the kids, with the housekeeping. They checked in on my husband and me. They brought food. After my first chemo session, I didn't accept the anti-nausea medication because I really wanted to try to manage my nausea with natural remedies, and it didn't work. And I got really sick. And my sisters-in-law came over to visit me, to encourage me, to help, with especially my youngest, because I was really not feeling well and couldn't not express how unwell I was feeling. And so my sisters-in-law came and took I don't know if they just took my youngest. I think they may have taken like the 3 youngest with them that day until I got, better. I felt better. Another day, my work BFF came over and we did crafts together. She showed me how to bead. And guys, I have to give a shout out here to my gatito, Sean. He rest in peace. He passed away last year in April. But whenever I didn't feel well after chemo, or was too tired to get out of bed, he'd find me and curl up next to me no matter where I was, on the sofa, on a recliner, in my bed. He never left my side. Whenever I was home, especially if I wasn't feeling well, but even if I wasn't feeling well, and he was not a lap cat. So Sean was not a lap cat. He liked to be in the vicinity that you're in, but he was not one to sit up close. At least, yeah, no, he wasn't. He wasn't like that. But the whole time that I was sick, he would find me and he would curl up, especially up against my belly, and he would sit with me. And the moments when I was home alone, not feeling well and not wanting to bother anyone, I got over it. And eventually I would call people and I'd ask them to just come sit with me, and they did. And I was able to do this because I finally understood people want to help. My people, especially, and your people, they want to help. Your diagnosis makes them feel helpless. It makes them feel helpless too, right? Because when I was diagnosed, I felt helpless, and your people, the people in that circle that you and your caretaker, your immediate family, your loved ones, made around you, gathered around you, they feel helpless and they want to help. And letting them help gives them a way to contribute to your healing. So I had this sort of mantra during that time that I'd forgotten about, but I was reading some stuff that I wrote right after I finished treatment. And I found this that I had written. My mantra was ask and allow. So ask for help and allow others to help you. And ask and allow. Ask and allow. That became my mantra at the time. So now I invite you to, again, pull out your journal, pull out a pen and a piece of paper, or just stop where you are and take a deep cleansing and calming breath and think about whom have you not been letting in? Who has been waiting for you to say, yes, yes, I need your help? I want you to think of one person you could call this week, not to update them on your treatment. Because if you're thinking of someone to call, but part of that call involves bringing them up to speed, then that is not your person. Who can you call this week that doesn't require updating where you're at on treatment, that you can just say to, I need company. Can you come? And remember that asking for help includes asking for professional help. I went back to therapy right after treatment ended, and my therapist was wonderful, and she helped me to start to integrate everything I had experienced into post-treatment life, as well as to try to sort through it all. So when I say number 5 is ask for and allow for help, it includes asking for professional support, whether from a psychologist, a counselor, a therapist, or a coach, and or a coach. So I'm going to pause here for just a second, because if what we've been talking about is landing for you, I want you to know there's somewhere you can take it. If you're a cancer survivor who has always been the strong one, and you're quietly wondering who you are now that everything has changed, you don't have to figure that out alone. I'm Eileen Lopez Tomei, cancer survivorship coach and fellow survivor, and my coaching practice exists for women exactly like you. If today's episode is resonating and you're ready to go deeper, ready to figure out what your 5 things are, book a free discovery call at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. The link is in the show notes. Okay, now back to you and what you take from all of this. I want to go back to the half marathon, the finish line, the words I said out loud and the thoughts that I had in that moment. Yes, I can do this. I have pictures. I'm going to try to find the pictures and see if I can integrate them into this episode somehow, or post them on YouTube or my social media so that you can see them. Literally at the end of the race, I have my hands lifted up, and I can see myself in my mind saying, yes, I can do this. I did this. I can have this surgery in 3 days. I can finish the cancer race. Cancer can't take everything from me. It can't take my community. It can't take my will to live, or the joy of living one day at a time in gratitude and peace. And the moment when I got off that hospital gurney after surgery, with the nurses standing by, I got into my hospital bed on my own. Those 2 moments, you know what they meant to me? Agency. It was me reclaiming my power over my body. I wasn't proving anything to anyone else. I was proving something to myself. So these are the 5 things that helped me after diagnosis. I hope they help you too, even if it's to help you think of the 5 things that you need to get in order to make it through diagnosis and treatment and into survivorship. Your 5 might be different, and that's perfectly okay. The point is asking, how do I want to experience this? What do I need? Who do I need? What help do I need to ask for? What help do I need to accept? So do the things that restore you, that give you energy, not suck energy out of you. Because believe me, chemo, and if you have to have surgery, and if you have to have radiation are all going to not only drain you of your physical energy, but they will drain you of your mental and spiritual energy. So you need to do the things and find the people that are going to restore that for you. Surround yourself with people who not only want your healing, but also you don't need to comfort or hold up in any way while you're healing. You don't have time for that right now. Okay, so ask for the help, get the professional support sooner rather than later if possible. And my wish for you is sana, sana, colita de rana, my dears. Remember, si no sanas hoy, sanarás mañana. Your body is still yours. Your community is still yours. Your healing is still yours. Hasta la próxima vez. Sana, sana.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Sana Sana, the show that helps you heal and restore the parts of your ecosystem that were depleted after a breast cancer diagnosis. If you liked the episode, please leave us a rating and review so we can reach more incredible survivors como tú who want to heal with us. If you want to stay connected with our growing community, check out our Instagram at Eileen Lopez Tomei Coach and share what part of the episode touched your heart today. See you next week.